Good morning, everyone. I decided to try something a little bit different. I haven't done this before, so it might be a little bit awkward the first time. But I have been thinking about starting a little podcast type situation for a while and just haven't really done it yet. So, like, I've been wanting to do it and then just kind of always chickened out like at the last minute and didn't do it. And besides, like, I mainly was putting like things related to gaming and stuff on my channel. But I did want to try this out because I think that what something that we really need to discuss and talk about in the coming new year. I mean, yes, it's still 2025 as I'm recording this, but 2026 is like in like 48 hours. So we're getting pretty close, guys. We're getting pretty close. So, yeah, the point is, I wanted to discuss mental health and just, how we can learn to work with our mental health and just kind of have a discussion about mental health in general. And yeah, so let me know what you think. And if you guys want to see more of this style video, let me know. But, you know, like I said, I'm experimenting around, trying out, seeing how all these things work. But yeah. So, basically, the reason that I decided that I wanted to get into like the whole concept of discussing mental health is because mental health is something that I myself have struggled with for many years. I struggled with it on and off in like various degrees throughout high school, throughout college, all of that. And it was difficult, not going to lie. And I've tried various different things and I've done so many different things just to help myself feel better, do better, understand better. Because that's, I think, also a really, really extremely important key is really learning to understand your anxiety. Because if you don't understand your anxiety, if you don't understand where it's from, if you don't understand the origin story, if you don't understand why this is happening, it's kind of difficult to then go back and, focus on what was the original trigger in the first place if you don't know where it came from. You get me? So there's that. And then, of course, also, the more you fear something, the more you're going to become afraid. And that might seem like really like stereotypical and completely over the top, but it's true. Think about it. You're afraid of, let's say you have like performance or you have a speech. You need to give a speech in front of a bunch of people. You're probably going to be nervous anyway because maybe you won't, but a lot of people are going to be nervous at the very beginning because there's a speech and they've either never done this or they do this very rarely. It's just a lot. And so their mind's already telling them, oh my God, what if this goes wrong? This is bad. This is what if this goes on. So we have a little alarm bells going off already telling us. And we are already feeling those alarm bells. And we're reacting to these alarm bells over and over and over again. And this reaction to the fear is kind of confirming in our mind that we're in like a really terrifying situation, so it's not gonna calm down the anxiety. No, it's going to make it get worse. It's going to enhance it, and you're going to be feeling worse. We need to not do that. And I will be talking a little bit more on like, you know, things I'm starting to figure out as someone in my little anxiety journey and my understanding. I do want to point out that I am not a medical professional. I do eventually intend to go to medical school, possibly, um, but I'm not there yet. I have a biology degree, biology pre-med. So I do understand the concepts of body and all that stuff, and I have worked in medical environments before. But like I said, I'm not a professional, so do not use this as professional advice. Cool, cool, cool. Great. Great. I'm glad we've gotten to that point. Okay. So, where were we? Um, I just completely interrupted myself and just got a little bit distracted on that side note. So, in the sense of our anxiety and triggering it by our own anxiety, we obviously don't want to encourage that as much, and that's not the, best way to go about it, of course. Um, one of the things I would like to mention is you really need to learn to love your anxiety. And I know that's really, really difficult. I'm sure your anxiety is terrifying. I'm sure your anxiety is like, I want to see the least amount of this bitch as possible. I understand. I know it's not something we really want to become friends with, but becoming friends with it is kind of the best way to not be fearing your anxiety by adding more fear to the fear that's already coming. Because there's the fear that whatever's going on, what's ever bothering your mind, will still come, most likely, as long as you haven't treated the origin story. But a step down is not also having those antagonizing thoughts in the background that are trying to get you to panic about those feelings and essentially worsen it. So you can focus more on that side rather than having to now focus also on the fact that your mind is kind of throwing rocks at you while you're trying to just plainly figure out the whole anxiety situation. You get me? Maybe just a little bit. I don't know. You could. Doesn't really matter as much. Well, so I mentioned all these things regarding, befriending your mind, understanding that we antagonize our own minds by reacting to our anxious thoughts when we have them, getting them worse, and we need to slow that down. So now I think we briefly need to discuss, well, what is anxiety? I think most people want to describe it as anxious feeling or a disease of the emotions, and that it's in the mind, and that it's in the feelings. What I have learned is in reality, it's a bunch of thoughts, just thoughts about the future. That's what's the anxiety, fear of the future. And we also have this little alarm bell signal. And this alarm bell signal is the kind of concept of a smoke alarm. It's there to protect you, keep you safe. But in someone with anxiety, this guy gets set off a lot. Yeah, it's not really fun. Often, when you get to the point of truly being anxious, in fact, often the first thing that gets set off is the alarm bell. And then you begin to feel the symptoms that your alarm bell is signaling you with. And you become afraid of those, which makes more thoughts go into your head, telling you how much you're in danger, which is just going to increase how anxious you are. So you're just going to continue getting more anxious. And then the alarm bells are like, oh my God, look, she's getting more anxious. We really need to alert the body that we're in a really dangerous situation. Set them off some more. So the alarm bells get set off even more. And what do those alarm bells do? Send some cute thoughts to the mind. The mind's freaking out. The mind's terrified. Further triggering the alarm. So they kind of go in this little cycle back and forth when you really are in a cycle. And that's why it's kind of difficult to stop because you're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And no, it's not fun. Of course it's not. I would never say it's fun because it's not. I've been through it. So, I'm like thinking about that now and I'm like, it really is a very interesting cycle and a complicated cycle. And unfortunately, one that not a lot of us are aware of, and not a lot of us know how to deal with either. Yeah. There's a lot to consider there. Hmm. Well, so here's another pause. I told you all of this, but then what can I do? Like I said, you are going to have to dig out that origin story to figure out the original main cause. But sometimes to get past that, you're going to need to break down some walls. So I think the first thing people really do need to work on is learning how to be present and not let themselves be stuck in that loop. The loop is not in control of you unless you let it. When you begin to feel these anxious feelings break out from the alarm, I recommend that you take a pause and be aware in that moment. Be aware. Where are you right now? What time is it? What are you doing right now? Are you actually in danger right now? The answer is probably not. These thoughts, your mind made them up, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're a fear, right? Yeah, they're a fear. They're completely and utterly a fear. A fear about what could, would, should, whatever happen. Are they reality? They're just, in a way, kind of an alternate reality of what could go wrong. Why should we be believing them anyway? Because why would we want to go after that dark reality, right? So think back to where you are now and how you're feeling because now, if you pay attention to all those moments, you'll realize that you are safe, you are okay, and all of those are just fears. And it'll allow you to slowly begin to feel calm and relaxed in that situation and just get out of that cycle. It might be a little bit more difficult at the beginning, but practice that and over time it'll get easier. Anyway, so I feel like I've covered quite a bit. It was maybe a little bit scattered in the last 15 minutes, but I hope you guys enjoyed. And like I said, let me know what you guys think. Toodaloo!